So, there's this quiet but super important transformation happening in Turkey right now. You see its cities booming, right? But behind the scenes, there's this huge efforts to breathe new life into its countryside. So today, we're going to break down the exact strategies Turkey is using to try and bridge that classic urban-rural divide.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can even talk about the solution, we've got to get a handle on the problem. And really, what's at the heart of all these policies? It's that classic story of the urban-rural divide, a challenge, by the way, that countries all over the globe are wrestling with.
And, it really all boils down to this one simple question. As cities just keep getting bigger and bigger, becoming these massive centers of economic gravity, what happens to the villages and towns that get left behind?
And yeah, we're not talking about a slow trickle here. It's a full-on migration. Think about it. Urbanization, new industries, mechanized farming, they're all acting like these giant magnets, just pulling people from the countryside straight into the cities. And that creates this nasty feedback loop, right? Fewer people means fewer services and opportunities, which, you guessed it, just makes even more people want to leave.
So, what's the answer to this? Well, governments are turning to a set of policies they call rural development. But that sounds a bit jargony, right? What does it actually mean in practice? Let's get a really clear definition.
Okay, at its core, rural development is really about two key things. First, there's the economic side, making sure farms and local businesses can actually provide a decent, stable income. But, and this is super important, it goes way beyond just the money. The second goal is all about improving people's overall well-being. This means investing in what some people call human and social capital. Things like better education, stronger community ties, and developing local skills.
And this really gets right to the point of who these policies are for. It's not some abstract idea. The target is crystal clear. We're talking about the actual people living in these rural areas and the farms and businesses that are, the backbone of their local economies.
All right, so before we dive deep into Turkey's specific plan, I think it's really helpful to see what's worked in other places. And there's this one hugely influential model that came out of the European Union. It's called the LEADER approach.
Now, the really cool thing about LEADER, and what makes it so different, is its core idea. This is not some top-down plan from a far-off central government telling people what to do. No way. Instead, it's a framework for empowering local communities to design and lead their own development projects.
And just look at the sheer scale of this thing. By 2018, this was no small experiment. We're talking about 2,800 different local action groups running with this all across the European Union. That covered over 60% of the rural population. That is absolutely massive.
So how does it actually work? Well, the whole LEADER approach is built on these 7 core ideas. First, it's area-based, so no one-size-fits-all solutions. Every plan is tailored to the specific place. The big one is that it's bottom-up. It puts local people right in the driver's seat. Then it's all about creating partnerships between public and private groups, pushing for innovation, and making sure projects are integrated across different sectors. And finally, it all runs on networking and cooperation. You put all that together, and you get a really complete, holistic model for development.
Yeah, and this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of what makes the LEADER model so special. It's all about handing the reins over to the local people, the ones who actually know their area best, and letting them call the shots on their own future.
Okay, so keeping that successful European model in mind, how has Turkey taken these ideas and adapted them for its own unique situation? Well, the country's whole roadmap is basically laid out in 2 key government documents.
The first one is the big one, the National Rural Development Strategy, or UKDS for short. You can think of this as the high-level playbook. It's the 30,000-foot view that sets the grand vision and the main goals for everything else. And the goals of this strategy directly target all those problems we talked about earlier. It's all about closing that urban-rural gap, trying to reverse that brain drain from migration, improving how things are run at both the central and local levels, getting things aligned with EU standards, and, this is a big one, protecting the small family farms that are really the heart and soul of these communities.
Okay, so if that first document, the UKKS, is the what and the why, then this second document, the Rural Development Action Plan, is the how. This is where the big strategy gets turned into real, concrete, on-the-ground action.
And the whole point of this action plan is something you can really picture. It's all about making real, sustainable improvements to how people work and live in these areas. The end goal isn't just to make rural life survivable, it's to make it genuinely attractive again.
And this is where the plan gets really smart. It's designed for maximum efficiency. See, it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about spending it intelligently.
The plan is set up to stop different groups from doing the same work, to make sure money goes to specific projects, to get different policies to actually work together, and to build up the skills locally so things actually get done right there on the ground.
Okay, let's take a step back and put all these pieces together. When you look at the grand strategy and the detailed action plan, what's the big picture here? What does this all mean for the future of rural Turkey?
Well, here are the main takeaways. Ultimately, the goals are to make these rural areas more economically competitive, to diversify their economies, so they're not just relying on farming, and to build up all the necessary infrastructure, both the physical stuff like roads and the social stuff like schools. And of course, to make sure all the government's policies are actually pulling in the same direction.
And this might just be the single most critical factor for success. Rural development can't just be its own little thing, off in a corner. Its success depends completely on how well it's integrated with all the other national policies. We're talking everything from transportation and education to the environment. It has to be a truly national, fully coordinated effort.
Which leads us with the final massive question, doesn't it? Turkey has this comprehensive roadmap. It's inspired by successful models from abroad, and it's tailored to its own needs. But is it enough? Can these ambitious policies really, truly restore a sustainable balance between the nation's buzzing cities and its historic countryside? The answer to that is going to shape the future of Turkey for generations to come.